Yes, so fundraising, here we go. So I, for the second one, I used all of my 25 grand personal bank loan and all my money, so I had nothing left at all. So I knew that I was going to have to raise the money, and so I started just basically asking people I knew. At that point I was asking everyone I came into contact with for any money. Found someone who said that, yeah, no problem, I'll then do the 40 grand, blah, blah, blah. That's what I predicted it was going to cost roughly. And then a week before we were due to start, and I called him and I said, so can we do that transfer? And he was like, oh no, sorry, something's happened. Blah, blah, blah. So I had a week, or I was potentially going to lose the builders to find 40 grand. And that was a tricky week, but I managed to find it. And it was, you learned a good lesson as far as making sure you always have backup options. So yes, so I gave everyone 10% a year on that money. Renovation, this is the happy days of the renovation. I served the rats with a Section 21 eviction notice, brought them straight over from Landon Road, because I thought, they've been pretty good. They did actually look after me pretty well on Landon Road. And I didn't have time to go and find another set of builders who are still at work. So this time I had a much more detailed list of works. I had the drawings from the architect, I had permitted development, certificate of lawfulness. Also, I got a fixed price quote from my builder. We did some negotiation. I even made him sign a contract. So I was literally like, I'm a pro now, this is going to be fine. And literally, he's going to be a doddle. So just let the builders come in. In hindsight, there were a few red flags, little things the builder was saying, like, oh yeah, no, don't worry, yeah, I've got a mate who's done a loft. And I was like, okay. And also, at one point, he also then mentioned, when we were in the van at one point, that he'd been to prison several times, once for firearms offences. But at the time, I was like, no, it's fine, bring him. So, my work had, I think, clocked on to the fact that my working from home, we spent quite a lot of time with builders. So they started just throwing an enormous amount of workload at me. So I wasn't on site as much on this one, but I thought it was fine. Builders pretty much knew what they were doing. We've done one before, same tiles, same flooring. But obviously the loft, I just didn't realise how complicated it was. The builder started complaining their drawings weren't accurate enough. Little noises I began to hear, but I was so busy and so tired. I was just, I'm sure it'll be fine. And then when I was on site, I started noticing that he was like crazy mood swings. He'd be like, sometimes like, mate, blah, blah, blah. I went on site once, I walked in the door to see him throwing a hammer across the site, and like builders diving out the way. And I was like, oh my God. So I was like, just kind of try and ignore it, just everything's going to be fine. I brought in a consultant structural engineer to help, because Wayne kept asking me questions about the loft. Obviously I didn't know, so I brought in a consultant engineer, hoping that would help to de-stress him a little bit. He started saying he needed more money. I was trying to push back, saying, look, we've signed a fixed price quote. It would be good if we could try and keep to it as much as possible. But there may be a little bit of room for negotiation, but you've got to tell me why. You can't just say, can I have 10 grand more? You've got to say why. Where's the 10 grand? Why is it costing more? If you explain it to me and I understand, then yes, okay, we'll try and find some more money. But he wasn't. He was just like, I need more money. And then I went to meet him once. We're about halfway through at this point, and he went, oh, just come and have a sit in the van with me. And he said, so listen, I'm throwing the towel in, can't handle this anymore, this is ridiculous, it's going to cost way more. I just throwing the towel in, we'll be here till the end of the week and then we'll be off. This is what the loft looked like at that point. So the steel was kind of half in, there was such a big hole where the stairs were going to be, and I just remember sitting there in his van just going, oh my God, like how am I possibly going to bring a new team in? I haven't been as involved as I was in the previous one, so I don't even know what materials we've got, I don't know where we are, I don't know, there's half a steel in my building. So I just said, look, what can I do to keep you? And he said, the only way is if I become the foreman, pay them all on a day rate, look after all the materials, the scheduling, and so I said, okay, that's what we'll do, because that's the only way I could keep them. So that's where my YouTube builder education started. Went home, practically, loft. It's amazing how many YouTube videos there are, but it was a very steep learning process. And so I quit my job. It was a good excuse. I wanted to quit my job anyway. I knew I couldn't do both at this point. It was too stressful. So quit my job, which is good. Maybe a little bit earlier than I potentially wanted to, but that was actually quite a positive move. Was forced to pay an outrageous day rate. I'm going to tell you how much because it's so outrageous. the relationship had then changed. So Wayne went from being my mate and my teammate, my builder, to being my employee, which he definitely didn't like because I was younger than him and I was very inexperienced. But I had to then be the one saying, what are we doing? Why can't we do that today? Does that need to be done by the end of the day? So relationships were strained. It went from being a jovial place to being like quite tense. I finally extra 20 grand as well at this point. That was not easy, but luckily had some very friendly people, Dean, who helped me. And
lucky I had it.
So we also at this point agreed that they would finish the main building work, and then I'd get a new team in to finish everything off. They agreed, and actually the workmanship was really good. So the quality of the work was still really good. It was a lot more expensive and stressful, but the work was good, and I learned an enormous amount. Like until you've done that, I don't really want to do it again, but looking back, definitely was interesting. So a couple of quick photos. This is the living room. So you saw from the first picture, it had a flying freehold section where my builders seem to think there used to be stables at the back and they used to take the horses through. So the living room was long and narrow, basically just like a long corridor. It did already have a pitched roof. So we took the ceiling joists out, secured them at this end. Suddenly, it just made the place feel so much different. It wasn't any wider, but it felt very different. This is the underslung joist hangers, which I now know an enormous amount, but we didn't have very much head height in the loft, so we had to do some quite sort of funky little techniques to get the head height in the loft, which is why it was quite, when they said they were just going to throw a towel in, it's getting someone else to come and understand where we were with the design would just be really crazy. This is the stairs. Very quickly tell you a little story about the stairs. So I got, there was a couple of, an Indian guy and his dad who came in, quoted on the stairs, gave me a good price, seemed to really know what they were doing, brilliant. And then really, it's like, terribly, the dad died, and I kind of didn't want to then take the job away. I spoke to the guy and he said, oh yeah, I just need a couple of weeks and then I'll be there, I still want to do the job. And I was like, yeah, of course. And then he came back after a couple of weeks, obviously still grieving hectically, and changed the design of the stairs completely. So then we would have needed to move the steel and change the loft so the loft worked around the stairs. And I was just like, dude, what we had the design, we knew what we were doing. And he was like, no, we've got to do it this way now. I was like, trying to argue with someone who's just lost their dad and just say, no, we've really got to keep it. Turns out his dad was really the one who knew how to do this. It needed 3 turns because it's in a really small space. So it's turned 270 degrees, 3 winders. Turns out his dad took that knowledge to the grave with him, so he didn't know how to do it. So I had to eventually just say, look, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to find someone else. That was quite stressful. And so we got some Chinese guys in, so it's a real international kind of operation. Chinese guys are brilliant, and as you can see, managed to get it. We were working with tiny tolerances on head height on the stairs here, but it all turned out really well. And then we got the Bulgarians in, so even more. Bulgarians came in and did the painting with a spray machine, which is amazing, very fast. Quick before and after. So this is where you can see the crazy kind of flying freehold section. Plants. I always try and put little plants at the front door, and I think that makes an enormous difference. A little bit kind of Kensington and Chelsea brought to Newham. This gives you an idea of what we did with the living room. This is basically a hallway, a dark hallway that turned into this amazing space with some feature beams there, which I think works really well. When I saw this property, it had about 25 people living in it at the time, including kids. It was really just horrible. We actually took some glass away from the kitchen, which is normally the last thing you would ever expect to do. But because the doors went all the way across the kitchen, basically the cabinets just went up to the window. Just stupid, so I had to put less light in the kitchen, which was very weird, but I think still needs to be done. So I think they were trying to run some kind of crazy pop-up East London cinema or whatever it was. This cost me about 800 quid and made an enormous difference. So sometimes gardens, I don't never want to spend too much money on gardens, but sometimes it can really make a huge difference. Again, did a tiny little bit of layout change here so we could put the shower screen for the shower up.
Who did your pictures, Jethro?
Sorry?
Who did your pictures?
I can share that. I can't remember his name now. Aaron someone. Very, very good.
Can you put it on the Facebook?
Yes, 100%. Same staging furniture as before, literally just moved it all across. It's three-bed place, so just 100% staging furniture just moved across. So, bought for 250,000. Again, it was another one of those ones at the step. This one, because I was in a rising market, the day before we were due to exchange contracts, got a call from the estate agent saying the sellers just had an offer from his mate of 20 grand more, and they said it was gonna go the day before exchange, and so I didn't know what to do. So I did the only thing I could think of, which was offer him some cash. So I had to give 5 grand in cash. Actually, that wasn't to the estate agent; that was to the seller. Refurb cost was 60 grand in the end on this one. Audition cost about 15 again, and put it on the market for 390, and sold it eventually for 430, which was mind blowing. So the main lessons: use a loft specialist, preferably without firearms convictions. Also, preferably a builder and an architect who either know each other or have worked together before, because otherwise they just blame each other. And with lofts, what tends to happen is the builder just has one look and goes, yep, I understand that, and then just does it, then doesn't really look at the plans again, because the reality is always going to be a little bit different to the plans. Being a foreman is about herding cats.
Yes.
I love that. It's a great quote. It's so true. Although I learned an enormous amount, it's not the best use of my time, so I am going to try and hire people who can run the team themselves. Mark walls where everything's going. This is something I learned on this. If you're doing a rewire and moving radiators and all that sort of stuff, just get a red pen, just go mark it on the walls everywhere. But this is where the radiator's going to go. Mark it here and here. This is where I want the switch. This is where I want the sockets. Because otherwise, they'll definitely just end up in the weirdest places. Or let's have more than one team of builders. If I'd had another couple of teams of builders, or one other team of builders, when Wayne had threatened to walk out, I had no leverage. I had nothing. So he basically could just say whatever he wanted as a day rate, and I had to pay it, really. As soon as you have more, then you have a bit more control.
Will you use Wayne again?
No.
Never.
No, ever.
What was
I'm
the day
terrified
rate?
of him. I made sure I paid him everything that he made me pay him. you don't want someone like that. He then, when my Bulgarians took over the painting, apparently he showed up one day and started threatening them.
How did you find him?
Wayne,